Hey, you getting ready to upgrade your 4.x C# MVC application to the newest and greatest platforms? Well, stay tuned. This video is going to get you started on moving your code base over to a newer code base. There is a previous video in this series, and it is in the link description, so be sure to check that out. But before we go any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Frank Thomas. I'm a seasoned C# developer. Been working as a C# developer for about a decade or so. And I've written lots of code over the years and also discovered a lot of things you can do, can't do, and you don't want to do. So hopefully I can give you some insight today. But the purpose behind these videos is to give you a demonstration of upgrading an application, a real commercial application that's going from an old written version from several years ago to the latest and greatest that I can get it to in today's day and age. Today we're going to look at some of the housekeeping it has to happen. I did talk about the application, things we have to do in the first video, but in this video I'm going to get a little deeper into the housekeeping, so stay tuned. And be sure to stick around to the end. I'm going to be showing you some of the details of dependency injection. I know that's a hot topic, and why you need to understand it as a developer. Okay, so let's get started here. So looking at my screen here, what I've done is I went into my program here, the one we're upgrading, and I went into the references. You can right click here and manage NuGet packages. Why would we use NuGet packages? It's just such an easy way to bring in code, dependency code that we need to get things done, and it's all packaged up, ready to go, and it's being supported by an outside entity. Now, you don't want to just upgrade everything willy-nilly, and we do need to upgrade a lot of stuff here. Because the code is at least 4 years old, we have a lot of packages here that need to be upgraded. I was actually a little surprised when I went digging to see how many packages needed upgrading. So you're going to find there's going to be 3 classes of upgrades that you're going to want to do. One is you don't want to upgrade it. You want to leave it just as it is. Okay, let me give you an example of that. Bootstrap is now in stable version 5.3.1. We don't want to go to version 4 because there is breaking changes in the way this stuff is formatted on the page. Now, if you want to go to 5 and you want to go through the pain of fixing it, fill your boots. But for now, I'd recommend keeping things that are not functionally important going forward and can stay the same as they are until we decide to change them. So right now, I would leave things here. At the very most, I would say upgrade to the newest version of Bootstrap 4.6.1. But I know 4.1.3 is doing everything we need, so I'm not going to upgrade that. Now there's another package here called Bootstrap Less. Same concept. There is a minor upgrade, 3.3.5 to 3.4.1, because I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what this is affecting. I would consider, if I'm going to do this upgrade, I'd upgrade this package all by itself, and this is the second classification of upgrades. There's some you don't want to upgrade, as we mentioned in Bootstrap. The second is some you probably will want to upgrade to get the latest functionality, bug fixes, etc. But you want to test them on a one-by-one basis unless you know exactly what those changes that are actually being made. So I would probably look at this and say, okay, I'm at 3.3.5, and we've had 2 minor upgrades, a major upgrade. Usually when it goes from 3.3 to 3.4, that's considered more of a major upgrade, and then a minor upgrade on the 3.4 stream with 3.4.1. Okay, so I would say we could do this one of 2 ways. We could just upgrade it and see what we break, but that would need you to extensively know your code base. But again, we need to make sure that this makes sense. We also have the Bootstrap date picker. That's another one here. That one there is a fairly minor upgrade, and this is probably a classification 3. I don't think it's going to make any difference, but again, I would consider upgrading this by itself and seeing what do I break. So there's going to be my definitive. I'm just going to leave it where it is. It's not hurting anything. I might upgrade it, and yeah, I do want to upgrade it. I know that the entity framework one is one that I will want to eventually upgrade. I know that at 6.2, it's not bad, but I also know that we can get slightly better performance, some new features in 3.6.3 and 6.4. And I don't think there's a lot of breaking changes. But again, because this is a framework plugin, this is something we depend upon to access our repositories like our database, then we'll want to make sure that we actually double check to make sure that's okay. jQuery, this is one too that I would also say upgrade with caution. Again, you want to make sure you're not going to make any breaking changes. If I was running jQuery version 1 or version 2, there could be breaking changes, but from 3.3.1 to 3.7, I should be reasonably okay. Again, this would be changes that I would make only based upon testing. So this stage will take time, is what you're discovering here. And there's jQuery validation. Again, it's a very minor upgrade by the looks of it, but again, you want to update it, make sure everything's running okay. You want to make sure that you haven't generated any new errors or warnings in your code, and be sure that everything's still okay. Now, your Microsoft packages are always a bit of a tricky bombshell. Okay, I do know that Identity Core, you can upgrade this one. It's pretty safe. Again, upgrade it, test it, make sure it's okay. And Identity Entity Framework, again, these two kind of go together. And then we have the Identity Owen, it kind of goes together. These three are kind of in the same area of functionality, so we'll want to upgrade all three of those at the same time and then do our testing. Always keep record of what your version was. We started out at 2.2.2 and we've upgraded to 2.2.4, for example. Okay. So once we've done all that and we went through all our packages, now this again is one of those I would move with caution here. We went from a major version 5 to a major version 8. There could be a lot of breaking changes occurring here. Twilio, for your information, is an outside service which we're accessing to do text messaging. So just to give you an idea. And all three of these, and they do need to be upgraded together. Again, we want to make sure that we're careful about what we choose and how we upgrade. You see that I do use the newtonsoft.json here. One thing I'll tell junior devs is get to know Microsoft JSON and Newtonsoft JSON. They are different cats, and there's different things that, and they operate differently. Important to know. Hopefully in a future video I'll dive into that and show you some of the differences. But you want to make sure that we've upgraded our packages, and we want to make sure everything is still clicking along just fine. The next thing we want to do is we want to start considering how do we want to pull apart our code. We could be given a program where we go into the controller, and let me just go to the accounts page here. There is no dependencies here. There is no services being called. All your business logic occurs right in the controller. We don't want that. We want to isolate that business logic. And let me just show you a picture here, just to kind of give you an idea. Here's our incoming request in our controller. And if we have all of this sitting inside of here, it makes it very hard to separate out our business logic from our controller. We actually want our controller to do one thing, and that is to accept an incoming request and give an outgoing response. Okay, that's the one thing that it needs to do. We want to light up a very specific service that controller talks to, and that very specific service will probably have another set of classes that are service validators and service repositories. Repository could be a database access, could be a lot of things, okay? As you can see here, it could be external communications or database/storage. Could be AWS, could be Google Cloud, could be Twilio in this program, could be just a SQL database, could be Mango, it doesn't matter. But we do want to separate it out. It gives us a lot of flexibility going down the road. And then we also want to recognize what our major support service groupings are, because each one of them, again, will have service validators, which can talk to general validators, because this is a support service as well, and service repositories. And we want to, again, separate those out. These are all different things here, whereas the service here, these service boxes, they are serving one purpose, and that purpose is to give you the general business logic. And then we separate out validation and repositories. In other words, we separate out anything we need outside. And we want to break things down as much as physically possible. We want things to be as small as possible, and it would be better for us to have more support services than more code in our specific service. The reason why is, if we can really break something down, let's say, for example, is sending it an email. Now, yeah, we could write a handler in every place in the code that says send this email and use the built-in classes that Microsoft supports, gives to us. But what happens if we change our email address? Now we've got to go and change every single entry in our code along the way to support that new email. And this particular program, I've got to do that. And that's not cool. That is just not cool. It would be better for us to create a support service that is an email support service that handles sending emails out. That's all it does. And it might have one class in it, and that is the send an email. And also, too, while we're at it, we want to make sure we're handling within our support service things like exception handling. That way, we don't pass an exception from a deep internal service right back to our controller. But that's not cool. We want to gracefully recover from anything that could fall apart on us. As well as what happens then is we have this tremendous flexibility. Now, this could be called by this service, and this service, and this service, and this service, and this service. So what happens is all the other different services, if needed, can light up and call and use the email supports service. Now, let's say we make a change in how we're handling our emails. We decide to go from using, let's say, MailJet, which is being used in the software, to Google Mail. It's an easy fix because it's one place we're making a change. And you'll notice as you become a more seasoned developer, it gets easier and easier and easier when you break things up like this. Initially, it's like, oh my goodness, this program is going all over the neighborhood. But once you begin to recognize where the pieces live and how the components mesh with each other, it becomes so easy. And this is where you're going to hear this over and over again. The concept of dependency injection is your friend. The whole idea behind dependency injection is if I need access to these 5 services for this specific service, I inject them into my specific service. Ooh, okay, I said a lot. So that is kind of a really first look at dependency injection, which we're going to be getting into deep in this program. So what do we got to do? We got to make sure that our code base that we're updating is that we want to update. Ultimately, we want to make sure it's working, it's updated. We don't want to move a lot of code around just yet. We will probably leave things where they live, and I'll show you how to grab sections and pull them into their own specific service, and then take that specific service and extract out a repository, like a database call or an email to that specific service using dependency injection. And then we'll also have our service validators. Within FlexiBudget, we also have something called general validators or general validation, and I'll demonstrate that as well, which is really cool. Again, we're trying to break things down as much as physically possible to make it easy to upgrade, support, and launch into the future. And one of the real benefits is, and I've seen this in many companies where they go from a very monolithic design, in other words, one server running one code base, into many servers running sections of the code, because it's all broken apart, now what you can do, instead of calling a piece of code that it has, what happens is it will call a secondary piece of code elsewhere. And using good asynchronous programming, we can actually call another controller and another server, make an incoming request, getting an outgoing response, and actually isolate that support service into its own server. And it provides tremendous upgradability and allows you to expand your farm to many servers. But I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to stop right here because, man, I could talk all day about this stuff. So hopefully this is helpful. I know I didn't go into a lot of code today, and I really talked about the brass tacks of what we're going to be doing, but this is important things you need to think about. Please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed, do think about subscribing. You'll get notifications when the next video comes up. And you can continue watching this series, and hopefully you'll learn a few things. And it's my goal in this series to help you go from being a junior programmer to an intermediate or possibly a senior programmer. Frank Thomas, thank you so much. We'll talk to you in the next videos.